after Prime Minister Narendra Modi strongly and unequivocally condemned the attack on temples in Canada and sought accountability from the Justin Trudeau government, Hindus in Canada are fighting back. Last night, members of the Hindu community who were attacked by Khalistanis in the premises of their temples in Brampton and Surrey came out in large numbers to protest against Khalistani violence. From the Hindu Sabha Mandir in Brampton, they carried out their marches, raised anti-Khalistan and pro-India slogans, and also got support from right-thinking Canadian nationals and others, including global citizens. And External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, who's on a visit to Australia, also expressed concerns over the recent attacks on Hindu temples in Canada and said this shows how political space is being given to extremist forces in the country. While addressing a joint briefing with Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong, S. Jaishankar spoke about Prime Minister Modi's condemnation and also accused Canada of making allegations without providing specifics.
What happened yesterday at the Hindu temple in Canada was obviously deeply concerning. You would have seen the statement first by our official spokesperson and also the expression of concern by our Prime Minister yesterday. That should, I think, convey to you how deeply we feel about it. Canada has developed a pattern of making allegations without providing specifics. Secondly, when we look at Canada, for us, the fact that they're putting our diplomats under surveillance is something which is unacceptable. Third, the incidents which the gentleman there spoke about, and do look at the video. I think they would tell you, in a way, the political space today, which is being given to extremist forces there. So we believe in freedoms. We also believe freedom should not be misused.
And viewers, this raises questions about whether Canada has surrendered to Khalistani goons. Is Trudeau's message to the people of Canada that Khalistani goons can go on a rampage, but the police will only protect them? The visuals from the temple attack showed how the police hesitated to take any action against Khalistanis, but spared nothing in their crackdown of Hindu devotees. Today, Times Now will reveal to you the dossier of how Trudeau's police was selective in their action against Hindu devotees, but did precious little with the Khalistani goons. Now, this dossier is an account of Hindu devotees which proves that the Khalistani attack was pre-planned. Two different locations, but the same modus operandi. Barging into places of worship with posters and abuses against India and Hindus. Here's a timeline of what happened over there. All right, let's quickly take a look at the first incident, which is from the Hindu Sabha Mandir in Brampton. Now, the timeline of this attack clearly shows that between 12 p.m., around 12 p.m. rather, 30 to 35 Khalistanis gather outside the mandir. They carried offensive posters targeting India, and Hindus called for violence against Indians and Indian envoys. At 12:15 p.m., Khalistanis verbally abused devotees. Women and children were abused by Khalistani forces and the persons who were standing there. They then began attacking with flags and sticks. Around 12:30 p.m., the violence began. The videos began circulating of Khalistanis attacking Hindus, and this, of course, raised concerns over the safety of Hindus in Canada. Around 1 p.m., Hindus gathered to defend the mandir. 150 local Hindus spontaneously gathered outside the mandir, and both sides began chanting slogans and confronting each other. At 3:30 p.m., they fought back with resilience. More than 200 Hindus gathered to showcase unity. Khalistanis were told to take down offensive signs. Beg your pardon. A summary report of this is all of the summary report that has been sent by Hindus based in Canada. Let's also quickly take a look at the Hindu suffering in Surrey and what really took place in Surrey. This is the Lakshmi Narayan Mandir in Surrey, where the Khalistanis' anti-India provocation, they arrived with these posters where Hindu-phobic messages and Bindranwale posters were there. There were abusive slogans that were raised where they called India the land of gang rapes. They then used filthy abuses against Hindus. Cops called these actions as peaceful, and they called it a peaceful protest. Khalistani protesters then blared derogatory slogans. Indira Gandhi was insulted, where the poster with Indira Gandhi on it was hit with slippers. They were wearing face masks, provoked the Hindus as well. The Hindus were attacked by Khalistani goons. They crossed the street and attacked, unprovoked attack that took place from the side of these goons is what has been reported in this particular report. Let's now take this across to our guests who are now joining us. We have with us Rahul Yendamuri, who's a board of directors as far as the Hindu Forum in Canada is concerned. Dean Baxendale, publisher and columnist and CEO of Optimum Publishing International, is also with us. Let me begin with you first, Dean. You know, what is very, very strange, and many would say ironical, is that the persons who are actually provoking the violence are considered peaceful by the police there in Canada, and the ones who are the victims who are then carrying a protest in response, a peaceful one, the action is taken on them, they are detained. What explains this bizarre set of circumstances that's unfolding in Brampton and Surrey?
Well, indeed, it's once again, it's politics playing to the extreme levels in Canada, whereby we are willing to allow diaspora politics to bleed into the public square, whereby Khalistani separatists and quite frankly, not well-meaning protesters at all are engaging with Hindu members of the Canadian community who have the right to defend their freedom of religion, their right and to defend the Indian government. And this is how democracy works. Where this has crossed the line and where police are not engaging at all, where the Sikh elements, and quite frankly, they're Khalistani elements, the Sikh community, again, in Canada, 95% plus, are peaceful, law-abiding Canadian citizens. These people are resorting to violence and perpetrating this on Hindu temples and people who should be free to protest and show solidarity for India. So our government and our police forces need to understand the dynamics, and when hate speech and violent acts start to take place, we need to step in.
Right. And in fact, let me take the question across to Rahul Yendamuri. Rahul Yendamuri, this the kind of situation that we are seeing unfold, it is leading to many coming out to say that perhaps the statement of the Indian envoy, who was, of course, now no longer in Canada, Sanjay Verma, the former Indian ambassador to Canada, one of the things that he spoke about is how these Khalistani elements have sort of managed to find their way, trickle into the various security forces of Canada as well. Do you think that these episodes go to show how Canada has managed to, or Khalistanis have managed to enter Canada's institutions?
Oh, absolutely. I think it is quite visible right off the bat that there is some sort of bias that is being established in the whole ecosystem of how the operations in Canada on the ground are running. As you can see, also recently, a police sergeant who was off duty was also part of the people who were protesting from the Khalistani side. He was a pro-Khalistani individual, and because he is a law enforcement official, the Canadian government, once they were able to identify and also understand that this is something that happened, they were able to suspend the official, right? So I think it is fair to say that there are multiple instances as such where people have been able to infiltrate different organizations, and that is taking its toll in terms of how law enforcement is being operated, right? So there is a need for the Canadian government to continue to pursue and understand to what level this infiltration has happened so that they can make the necessary changes to avoid such kind of incidents on Canadian soil.
Right. And in fact, let me bring that question to you as well. Dean Baxendale, do you think that's a valid concern? Because here you have the incident of a policeman and it's well documented. Now, anybody can do what they want to on their time of duty. But in this case, it raises some very, very serious questions because the police and their role itself is coming into question over here. And this is something that the former Indian ambassador had also said. And in the case of the Canada Border Force as well, there was one case at least reported of a person who is known to have committed acts of terror here in India, but he's very much part of a security force there in Canada. Now, these are some very, very serious concerns being expressed here. Dean.
Yeah, they're very serious concerns. And I think when, again, an individual's right when they're off duty to be involved with a protest, a peaceful protest, okay, well, should that be allowed? I think when you have individuals who are absolutely in line with, we'll say, the more radical elements of the Khalistani movement, then that's a danger to the integrity of our institutions, our policing, et cetera. The question is whether or not it's individuals higher up within the forces that are making the decisions around not interdicting and actually stopping this kind of violence. So we need to get a hold of that. And also, to your point, I think very, very important, the CBSA official, where there's been a number of reports, needs to be fully investigated. And until that investigation takes place, I think we need to, provide the Canadian Border Services with a chance to come public and reveal the information with respect to that individual.
Rahul, what needs to be done from here on? Because clearly, of course, the way the diplomatic ties are plummeting, the way that they are being given a free run round in Canada, now this is going to raise some serious questions as to whether there's any seriousness at all within Canada to resolve the issues, or they want these issues to sort of, continue to increase, given the fact that it's an election year and they want to be seen going soft on these pro-Khalistan elements, Rahul.
I think there is definitely vote bank politics that is at play. Right? The federal elections are coming up. There are contestants. Both of them are fairly strong. And I think this vote bank definitely has the ability to swing the political elections one way or the other, whether it's liberal or conservative. So at this point in time, I think it has become pivotal for both parties to be able to gain that vote bank in their favor. And in this regards, there's a lot of lenience that is being shown. So I do understand that, politics is a very different game. It goes deeper than more of what we see at the surface level. But at the same time, this is a basic fundamental human right. Everybody should have a right to safety. And you cannot let Canadian citizens face some sort of partial treatment from law enforcement. Because whenever there is an issue, people reach out to law enforcement for safety and security. If law enforcement is unable to secure people, then what are people going to do? And this is why you see these huge rallies happening, right? Now, the Hindus have realized that even law enforcement is being partial towards them. And hence, in an attempt to protect their own safety, the Hindus have made a stand to be able to stand out there and start protesting. I think the only hope is that all these protests remain peaceful. We do not engage in any sort of violence, and yet we still continue to deliver the message by numbers and showing our strength that we need protection. We are also a part of this great nation, and Canadian citizens are Canadian citizens irrespective of faith, religion, so on and so forth.
Absolutely.
So I think there is a need for the government to recognize.
We're discussing the shocking turn of events that took place there in Canada and Brampton as well as Surrey, where not just were temples attacked, but also in terms of the law enforcement action that was misdirected at the victims, in this case the Hindu side, rather than the Khalistani goons who actually went and entered the temple premises and started attacking the devotees there. Let me quickly bring in Rahul Yendaburi on one of the biggest concerns at this point of time, Rahul, is that, what's happening over there, not just the government, but which is, of course, for political reasons, the police, which is, of course, as you said, it's been infiltrated by Khalistani, elements. The larger question is, what really is the plan of action for the Hindu community now from here on? Of course, there was a protest that was held, but even following that protest, there were certain arrests that were made. Now, this is really going to raise some serious questions as to how one is going to, express their voice in a democratic country.
Absolutely. And I think the next steps of action are, there are various organizations, such as we are one organization, right? Hindu Forum Canada. There are other organizations. There are also different organizations that are catering to the unity amongst the Hindus and Sikhs. So there are Hindu Sikh unity organizations. So if you notice, the Ontario Sikhs and Gurudwara Council also made an immediate release on the day of the event itself by the evening that they want everybody to maintain peace. They instructed all the Sikhs to stay at home, not go out for any protests, and recognize that this is something that is not acceptable. And because not all Sikhs are Khalistani extremist supporters,
absolutely,
right? Not everybody is in the movement. So we will leverage all of these different channels, bring together the leaders of all these organizations. We will figure out how we are going to coordinate messaging ourselves to the government and establishing more security around this whole matter.
Okay.
But it is going to be to resort to very peaceful means of doing things. And I think the greatest request and the most humble request we would make to everyone is please do not resort to violence. That is not how either community, the Sikhs or the Hindus, operate. The core foundational essence of similarity between
Absolutely.
both
I
faiths
think that's a
is
very,
we
very
want
important point
peace.
that you're making there, Rahul. The importance of peace is there. But of course, what is also very important is that law enforcement agency is act in an unbiased manner, and that should be evident from their actions. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the case there in Canada. Dean Baxendale, Rahul Yandaburi, I'd like to thank both of you for joining us this evening.